Beauty is before me, and beauty is behind me. Above me and below me hovers the beautiful. I am surrounded by it. I'm immersed in it. In my youth, I am aware of it, and in old age, I shall walk quietly the beautiful trail. In beauty it is begun. In beauty it is ended. Wisdom from the Navajo, who stand this day in unity with all natives at Standing Rock. Will you join with me in the responsive reading? Hear people talk authentically. The thirsty drink from the waters of community. The desperate find a reason not to surrender. Here, people wonder who they are. Will you please welcome this morning Karry to offer our welcome.
I have before me the top 5 least popular cookies served at Sunday luncheons here at Fountain Street Church. The top 5 least popular Sunday luncheon cookies. Number 5, Fundamentalist Snaps. Number 4, Broccaloons. Number 3, You Are Not the Boss of Us Sandies. Actually, that's a popular one. Number 2, Monkey Clumps. And the number 1 least popular cookie served at Fountain Street Church is the conservative tangy nutballs. Hello, my name is Karry Kidder. I've been a member of Fountain Street Church since 2011. And as Jason mentioned, I'm going to be doing Laugh-A-Palooza later in the chapel at 12:40, and I wanted to give you some idea of how that was going to go in there. Today is Stewardship Sunday. It is time to celebrate all the good things that is Fountain Street Church. In the last several weeks, the Stewardship Committee has tried to highlight some of the many reasons you come to church: social justice, education and learning, music and art, fellowship, and worship. And today we appreciate this place where we celebrate life in all its seasons. The dedications of the children to memorial services, weddings, and holidays, and just having fun together. Before I go, I wanted to express some personal gratitude to you all. As a 53-year-old gay man, I never realized how much oppression and bigotry I had faced all my life until I was in a place that was free of it. At Fountain Street Church, I am supported as a gay man, but not under a spotlight because of it, for good or bad. Here I can just be me and do not feel like my sexual orientation is any more or less important, titillating, or up for debate than anyone else's. When I first had these feelings, it was overwhelming. And to this day, I'm still surprised from time to time by it. But overall, it is a liberating, soul-lifting, wonderful gift I have found here at Fountain Street Church. Now, Fountain Street doesn't tend to be a touchy-feely type of place, but do me a favor if you feel comfortable with it. Either pat yourself on the back or pat your neighbor on the back and just say, "Good job," because you deserve it. This is just one of my wonderful personal experiences here at Fountain Street Church, and I am sure you have many other reasons to tell yourself good job. We are a very precious and very rare community here at Fountain Street Church. Thank you for your time, attention, also your pledges, and see you a little bit at Laugh-A-Palooza. Thanks.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Because of who you are, I give you glory. Because of who you are, I give you praise. Because of who you are, I will lift my voice and say, Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Because of who you are, I give you glory. Because of who you are, I give you praise. Because of who you are, I will lift my voice and say, Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Jehovah Jireh, my provider. Jehovah Nissi, Lord, you reign in victory. Jehovah Shalom, my Prince of Peace. And Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Jehovah Jireh, my provider. Jehovah Nissi, Lord, you reign in victory. Jehovah Shalom, my Prince of Peace. And Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Jehovah Jireh, my provider. You're Jehovah Nissi, Lord, you reign in victory. Jehovah Shalom, my Prince of Peace. And Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Lord, I worship you because of who you are.
Thank you to the Heartside players, and thank you to Fountain Street. This is our first ever joint worship service with a church. And so my name is Andy DeBraber. I'm at Heartside Ministry, and normally we would be worshiping over there right now, but thanks to your graciousness, we're here worshiping together. We're grateful to our Heartside players who would normally be playing there for giving us a little glory and praise, reflecting the divine in our presence. We thank you for your support in many ways here at Fountain Street, especially of our advocacy program these days, where you are helping people to get the health care and medications they need, helping people to get into housing, helping people to walk along what is a very difficult journey, but to know that they are supported by you and so many in it in very tangible ways. A couple of those tangible ways, I have bags right behind me here full of gloves and socks and underwear, I think. I'm not sure. I didn't look back. Nope, gloves and socks. I don't know. The choir brought them. But that's one of the big needs in the wintertime as it gets cold here. So thank you for that. And for those of you who are here from Heartside, thank you for making it down today. And We, as a group from Heartside, say thank you to Karry for inviting us to lunch. We'll be there, and it's on us. The Heartside folks, anyway. The rest of you have to pay for at least an hour, I understand. And also, I invite you to join us down at Heartside sometime at 11:30 on a Sunday, where we worship every week. 3 readings for us today from 3 different traditions. The one comes from Confucius. Seems appropriate for the week. In a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of. In a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of. I have a koan for us to ponder. From the Jewish tradition, in the book of Deuteronomy, we read, "You shall not see your brother's donkey or your sister's ox." Well, I added the sister's part. "Or your sister's ox falling under its load in the road, and hide yourself from them. You shall lift it up with them." That's in Deuteronomy. And then in Exodus, we hear this. "If you see your enemy's donkey sagging under its burden, you shall not pass by. You shall surely release it with him." Exodus talks about enemies, Deuteronomy about friends, and in the Talmud, Baba Metzia, it says, "If the animal of a friend requires unloading, and an enemy's also requires unloading, you should first help your enemy in order to suppress the evil inclination." And then from the Christian tradition in the Gospel of Luke, this familiar story. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, What is written in the law? What do you read there?" The lawyer answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, the lawyer asked Jesus, "And who? Who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him. And when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, 'Take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend.'" Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the one who fell into the hands of robbers? The lawyer said, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."
As a part of our worship practice, we take time to commune with the great stillness which is the source of life and light within us all. And I welcome you this Sunday to join a breathing practice which has become a part of our chapel worship in these last weeks, that welcomes you to pay attention to your breath as we offer our prayer and meditations. But in particular, at the top of what you believe is your in-breath, to pause and take just a little bit more. You can try that right now as we get ready to breathe in and pause, and then just make a little bit more room at the top of your breath. And then allow the breath to leave fully and slowly, so that in that practice you might come to experience the promise of some of what was offered in Sacred Story by Andy this morning, which is there is enough within you. There's more than you believe. And the question that lands before us today, November the 6th, is what will you do with that little bit more which has been given to you on November the 9th? We've spent a lot of time talking about November the 8th. But I ask and welcome and invite you, even challenge you this morning to focus your prayerful meditation on who and how you will be the morning of November the 9th. No matter who you choose to vote, and please vote. In that little bit of extra that is within you, will you choose to be responsible for the pain and the suffering that has made this election season what it is? Will you choose to unload your enemy's donkey first? It is only in this way that we show the world what this house stands for. Let us gather our hearts and our minds and take a little extra breath and remember that there is more, and pray that we might choose to live and to act with it in a way of generosity, of strength, and fearlessness that is truly worthy of this grand place and the lives who have made it so. Let us be in prayer. And the people said together, Amen. I want to introduce you to my very best friend. He is a source of extraordinary wisdom, not because he has the greatest brain on the planet, because he has the biggest heart. And I share with you this morning as I listen to him that you would hear him with the same ears that I do. 3 years ago this weekend, this man walked me into the ER and I had open heart surgery. And it is because of him and because of all of you that I have been blessed to live these last 3 years. Thank you.
This week, I had a chance to sit down with one of our neighbors, much like Jason and I were doing the morning we went to the ER. And to talk with him at Heartside, let's call him Bill. Bill arrived in the Heartside neighborhood about 15 years ago when he lost his factory job as an injection mold line leader, as well as the second job he was working at that time at a Shell gas station. And then because he could no longer pay his rent, he lost his apartment. After sleeping in shelter for a little while. He got into a subsidized apartment in a Heartside neighborhood. However, things soon went south there as well, and he lost that apartment. But rather than evict him, because that would put a mark on his future ability to rent, they allowed him to move out and agreed that if he ever came up with all the money that he owed in back rent, he could move back in. So for the next 18 months, Bill slept in the doorway of Heartside Ministry. 18 months, a year and a half, slept in the doorway. When it would get really cold, ungodly cold, he would get up and walk down to Fulton and Market, where there's an entrance to the skywalk, and find a warm place in the stairwell and sleep there a few nights out of the year. Heartside, he says, didn't mind him sleeping there because he cleaned up after himself in the morning. And the police would periodically drop off a slice of pizza for him during the night. During his days, Bill would ride the Heartside circuit, so to speak, would walk it. Breakfast at Dégagé, maybe a shower and laundry there, depending on need and on his funds available. Lunch at God's Kitchen, dinner back at Dégagé or Guiding Light or Mel Trotter. And in between, he would scramble for a few dollars here or there, or spend some time in our computer lab or helping out around the ministry. And of course, he carried everywhere his worldly possessions with him. Some would describe this ride or walk every day as a prison-like cycle that's hard to escape. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort just to be alive in those moments. This story is not an atypical story in Heartside, next door, just around the corner. Nor is Bill's background atypical. Being in shelter, where Bill says he couldn't sleep. He was there a little bit, but he couldn't sleep because everybody's talking. You have 100, 200 guys in a room, and at some point in the night, somebody's talking. But he said that's not the only place he had trouble sleeping. Sleep has never come easily for him. Even with sleeping pills now, he gets 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, he says. They have nasty side effects like diabetes and eczema. It's a part of the regimen of 15 pills that he takes for sleeping, for diabetes, for neck, back, and leg pain, for bipolar disorder, and to prevent having another heart attack, of which he's already had one. Back to sleeping, though. When I asked Bill about his family growing up, he said that his mom was never really around, and that his dad, when he was around, beat the pulp out of him, his 2 brothers, his 4 sisters, and their mom. His dad's vice was alcohol. Bill's way of coping was to not be around the house at night, so that he would not be around when his dad showed up. Sleep has never come easy since then. Bill lost his jobs when the drugs he used to cope with his physical and emotional pain began to take over his life. I was what they call a working addict, he says. And then he became a homeless former addict, sleeping in our doorway. One day, nearing that 18-month period, our former director, Barb Pekich, came up to him and told Bill that he was getting his apartment back. A donor had agreed to cover his back rent, his first month's rent, and deposit. You all helped me get off the street, Bill says. You all. And you're doing it today. He said, I wanted to say thanks to whoever put up the money. They said no. I wanted to pay it back, but they said it's a gift. To this day, I still can't believe they done that. It was a lot of money, he said. A lot of money. So Bill's been back in his place for the last 12, 13 years or so. He gives back by volunteering in our computer lab, helping out around the ministry, volunteering with the Grand Rapids Red Project's CleanWorks program that operates 3 times a week out of Heartside Ministry, helping others get clean of their addictions. He has participated in support groups, the nutrition and walking group. It's been part of the Heartside Gleaning Initiative, which, if you aren't familiar with it, goes out to the farmers markets, collects what's left over at the end of the weekend, and distributes that in the Heartside neighborhood. But Bill can't do as much with us or in the community these days because his legs are in such pain, and they don't know what's wrong. I hate that, he says. I hate it. He says he's 60 years old, but his body feels like it's 80. That's what years of trauma will do to you. Bill's greatest fear to this day is losing his apartment because he doesn't believe he could get another place between his income, a felony he picked up while homeless 12 years ago, and the tremendous housing crisis in our city right now. In a housing summit put on by the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce last month, a major local developer said, "There's nothing we can do about this housing crisis." He said, if a landlord can double the rent and get it, that's what the landlord needs to do. There was one value, as you can hear in that conversation, one priority: economic gain. It was portrayed as inevitable, as beyond choice. I'm not even going to talk about, besides this, the other recent high-powered meeting where our neighbors were talked about as the problem that needs to be controlled. When I asked Bill what he would want if he could have anything in the world, no limits, he said, I think everybody should be equal. I'll never see that in my lifetime, he said. We should all be treated right, no matter who we are. It ain't going to happen, he said. People have been fighting since the beginning of time, but that's what I'd really like. You've met some of our neighbors who are playing music for us today. I want to introduce you to another. I want to invite Dennis Burkett to come up. Dennis is a visual artist with us. I think last time I was here, I might have shown a piece of Dennis's work. He does some spectacular sunrises, some scenes of Grand Rapids, and many other pieces of art, but he's also a great poet and has written thousands of poems. So today's message is actually in 3 parts, and after each part, Dennis is going to share a poem. Thanks, Dennis.
Hi, it's an awesome day out there today. And this is 3 poems that I've written. The first one's called Tomorrow, the second one's called Journey, and the third is Decisions. And we do have a big decision because the election's coming up. So I'm just going to read these for you. Chasing the sun, the words emerge, following all these passages that lead through my world. What I describe as my objective, in each new passing moment, these words could relive it. Where will I be tomorrow? Each new idea and decision is now inside the passage I just created. So now each person can see the outcome and their own perception can relate as these words emerge from this passage, if I can still just send one more message. As I create one more picture to describe, all this is one snapshot of my life. It's frozen in time. So when it's read and discovered, my own will can make its mark on those who experience the work. My creations, my own visions of art, chasing the sun past, as the past disappears, every morning is the future that has already appeared. As the earth circles the sun, our lives are infused together through changes. And each moment God creates, each passing moment is now, as each new idea and decision opens new doors that lead us into tomorrow. Thank you.
I want you to stay up here with me.
Sure.
All right. So as we've noted, there's this thing going on Tuesday. The alternative title to my message today was, How Serious Are You About Moving to Canada? Or as someone more politely suggested, do we have enough faith in the democratic process to accept whatever outcomes we have this week? Clearly, both sides have engaged in plenty of vitriol, mudslinging, and personal attacks. We've too frequently heard too little about the real issues. and yet there are very real issues at stake. From the top of the ballot to the bottom or the back or however far down it you need to go on Tuesday. At the top, our national and state elected leaders make decisions that dramatically affect the lives of the most vulnerable among us every day, whether it's about health care, housing, transportation, employment, schooling, emergency support. And at the bottom of the ticket, elections like drain commissioner, like clerk, like school board have great sway in our daily lives and in the future of our community. Environmental issues like water always have the greatest negative effect on those living with poverty. The same for voting rights and issues. The same for schools. More importantly this year, though, and especially only 2 days before the election, is, as Jason invited us, to examine our behavior and language and how it's contributing to tearing down or to building up our community. Are we really trying to listen to and understand each other? What kind of language are we using about our enemies? And if that's our language, why would we expect the other side, whichever side that is, to do any differently? Or as one Facebook commentator put it, at this hour, after reviewing the steady diet of political ads, I have calculated that everyone running for office is a lying, cheating rat skunk. To which another aptly replied, but if everyone is a skunk, then we're all skunks. So in the category of how not to be a rat skunk, we file this from former CIA agent Amaryllis Fox. The only way to disarm your enemy is to listen to them. If you hear them out, if you're brave enough to really listen to their story, you can see that more often than not, you might have made some of the same choices if you'd lived their life instead of yours. And while it may be easier to dismiss your enemy as evil, hearing them out on policy concerns is actually an amazing thing. Because as long as your enemy is a subhuman psychopath that's going to attack you no matter what you do, this never ends. And when it comes to participating in elections, Anthony Robinson pushes us to do so with passion and with humility. In pretty much equal doses. Passion for life, passion for justice, passion about the things and the people we believe in, passion for our nation and our communities and our world, and humility, because none of us knows the truth whole and unimpaired. Humility that is able to say, you may be right. I may be wrong.
This one's called Journey, and it's just another part of the story of what became of me on my journey through time here at Heartside. Within the journey of time, we collect many things within our own hearts and minds. Non-physical assets or liabilities are conceived within our own efforts. As they emerge, each decision and each solution is compounded by problems. As each new due day brings on its own set of conditions, we all must face our own solutions. As the sun rises and sets, each minute is recorded, and the replay is in our own memories, because there's no going back. Now each day is in the past. It's our history, and the time is moving fast. Plans are made and changes emerge, and the best made plans can become askewed. Gathering each experience the lessons that we have learned, where will our decisions lead us? As each person's existence depends on wherever they're going, and it becomes part of God's design as He leads His people, each believer through the passage of time, and protected by the blood of Jesus until tomorrow comes, and then He's here to free us.
Thanks. Clapping. So finally, I want to return to that story that we heard earlier. We usually call it the Good Samaritan, but the title itself is misleading and insulting. Misleading because then we identify ourselves with the Good Samaritan. Insulting because calling one person in a particular population good implies all the others are something not good. Try on, oh, you must be the good Fountain Streeter. Or others that you can, I'm sure, imagine. Originally, this was called the story of the man in the ditch. And that's who I want you to try to identify with today. Some of us have been beaten down and left for dead, half dead enough that this is easy to imagine. For others of us, that's more difficult. And maybe for us, we can identify with the lawyer asking the questions. New Testament Jewish scholar Amy Jill Levine says of the lawyer's questions, the lawyer's question, who is my neighbor, has legal merit. One needs to know who are neighbors under the law and who are not. But in the context of love, this question is not relevant. According to Leviticus, love has to extend beyond the people in one's group. Leviticus 19 insists on loving the stranger as well. For our parable, the lawyer's question is again misguided. To ask who is my neighbor is a polite way of asking who is not my neighbor, or who does not deserve my love, or whose lack of food or shelter can I ignore, or even whom can I hate? The answer Jesus gives is no one. Everyone deserves that love, local or alien, Jews or Gentiles, everyone. But that gets us ahead of ourselves a bit here. As you have in the religious literacy notes in your program, the Hebrew word for neighbor has the same letters when you read it in the same order as the word for adversary or enemy. The only difference is in the vowels, and in ancient Hebrew, the vowels were not written in. So while the lawyer keeps pressing for neighbor, Jesus keeps asking him to go deeper. But the lawyer can't. Even in the end, when asked who was a neighbor, the lawyer can only reply, the one who showed mercy, unable to even utter the word Samaritan, and admit the one he is called to love is his enemy. So if you've been able to identify with the person in the ditch, what we have after being robbed and beaten and left for half dead, which is still half alive, is someone approaching me from the group that you most fear. And I would ask us today, who is that? When we are in desperate need of help, who would you least like to see approaching you? Who, when you saw them approaching, might you think, I'd rather die than be helped by that person? If we still lived in an age where people burned down others' houses or cities, whose house or city would you burn down? I guess we still live in that age, unfortunately. If you need help, maybe think of a militia-clad person carrying several weapons to come help you. Or a roughly dressed, loud and large rap artist. Or a raging supporter of the other political party, or an ex-con, or a current con. I don't know. You're all imaginative people. I'm sure you have someone. I'd submit, though, that for those of us in the majority, in the places of privilege, it is much harder to name our enemies, our adversaries. A, we're nice people, especially in West Michigan, and we don't call people our enemies. And B, we're in power. So our enemies are much less threatening. Most of the time, though, Jesus wasn't talking to people like us, which is why it's so often noted when he actually was. Next door is indeed a world away. Most often, we don't know what's going on in the houses, heads, and hearts of our neighbors, whether they are homeless and around the corner or right nearby here, or supporters of opposing political parties or candidates, or people who literally live right next to us. Activist Trudy Smith says, working towards justice and speaking the truth are things that I am still learning to do in love instead of in anger. It's easier to do when I remember that my enemies are not other human beings. My enemies are not other human beings, but destructive behaviors and the belief systems that drive them. Behaviors, beliefs, and people can change. Or as we heard earlier, as long as your neighbor/enemy is a subhuman psychopath that's going to attack you no matter what you do, it's likely to happen. We're walking ourselves right into it. Our fears tend to be blown out of proportion. So the invitation today, the challenge today, is to get to know a neighbor, to get to know an enemy, to get to know an adversary. Maybe it's at lunch today over in the social hall or somewhere else. Or maybe it's like my friend Leah, who tells the story this weekend of having baked an apple pie to bring to her neighbor who has all the Trump signs and who has moved up here from the South and who has all outward appearances of being one who would be enemy or adversary to her. And she decided to bake this pie and to bring it to the neighbor and to do so before the election so that it didn't appear conciliatory afterwards. And she tells of how she was shaking, preparing to go there with fear. And yet she faced her fear and went over and knocked on the door. And much to her surprise, her neighbors were rather bemused by the whole thing. You're bringing us a pie because of our signs in our yard? We're neighbors. That doesn't matter. That'll be over and we'll still be neighbors. Come on in. And they had a lovely conversation. So let us jump in to our fears and get to know our neighbors, as different as we might think we are or they are. Dennis, would you offer us one more poem?
This last one is called Decisions, because we all have a big decision to make here pretty soon on Tuesday, and we face decisions every day. The time to make decisions is now. You can't let others make them. Whose life is it anyhow? Take control and don't forget the blessings that God gave you. To earn your way, you have the talents you possess. There's a long, winding road ahead and a resistance against your plans. You may have to go to plan B, but you can't give up. You have to make your stand. Don't let them mold you into another cast for shame when it's never going to succeed. You know the one who will be to blame. This is where you're going now, and every decision we make affects where will we be tomorrow. So make the decision now. Be committed to your own skills to make things happen by your own free will. God is always there. Don't be afraid to take advice. Your path has been paved, and you've been saved by Jesus Christ. What could go wrong any day or any hour, and the time to make the right decision is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I run in my neighborhood. I imagine you probably walk, run, drive yours. You get about 36 hours to do the thing we've all thought of and decided not to, which is to live out the stories you've heard preached on and sung about this morning, and to pull off the road or walk up the driveway and knock on the door of that house with the other sign and simply thank them for their passion in making America a place where we are indeed free to speak. If you want a miracle this week, try that. You'll probably find one. Go in peace, friends.
Of all the feelings that a person can have, there is one that makes life seem desolate, empty, and sometimes not even worth living. When there is not hope, hope for the future, hope to be loved, hope to be heard. When people are without hope, they are robbed of one of the most defining parts of their lives. We must never underestimate the power of hope.
The whispers of my heart speak so softly. Are they really there if no one hears them? My voice is so small and so soft. Can you hear me? Give us hope and we'll show you the way.